This is Ty Brown with D1 Ticker and Coaches.wire. We are here at the 2023 AVCA National Convention. I'm joined by Colleen Munson. Colleen is the head volleyball coach at Western Michigan. She's the Mid-American Conference Coach of the Year and the Midwest Region Coach of the Year for 2023. Greetings, Colleen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk to you about a couple things here. The first thing I want to talk to you about, though, is transition in leadership. Kathleen Beauregard was at Western Michigan for 1,000 years, and then she transitions out, you get a new athletic director, right? And so you think about a culture, every person you put into a culture changes the culture just a bit, but there are still those core values that the culture operates on, right? So I wonder about the change in culture when you talk about seeing somebody retire who's been there for so long, been the leader of an organization, and then somebody comes in new, and we all have to learn each other, a new athletic director, and then you have to learn this person, that person has to learn you, how to communicate, how we work, what is the process through the sport administrator, is that going to change, all those things. So talk to me a little bit about that transition in leadership.
No, that's spot on. Kathy Beauregard hired me. So she hired me, and the administration that she surrounded herself with will always be family. Kathy retired right after COVID, and that was a very difficult time for all administrators, all leaders, regardless of their chosen fields and careers across the world.
Right.
But when Kathy retired, she left our athletic department in a position to continue to grow, as she planted the seed with some amazing people. Dan Bartholomew joined us as an athletic director just under 2 years ago, and he has really inspired us and empowered us to grow within the industry, in the trending industry now, because it's evolved and changed quite a bit. So we've been invigorated with his energy and his passion, but the foundation that Kathy established and left us with will always be remembered as well.
Yeah, which is excellent. Tell me about learning a new athletics director, right?
I think it's probably more difficult for Dan in that he's had to learn not only faces and names and people within the community of Kalamazoo and on campus, but it's a evolving and fluid industry. And how do we fit into that industry, and how can we be the very best within our means? Yeah. Dan talks a lot about being the top of the group of five, and being successful within our Mid-America Conference. And then that's very important to keep in mind and have a first perspective. As coaches, we're always trying to grow ourselves. Growth mindset, I think, is very important for not only our program as head coaches in our programs, but as we follow an athletic director that has the ambition and just energy that Dan shows on a daily basis. It's been very rewarding to learn and to grow. Our head coaches meetings are full of nuggets that we can apply right away. He also gives us some things to challenge that we can ponder within our department, and we can do within our staffs and our student athletes. So perspective is everything. And when you bring someone new in, they have different experiences. They have different set of values. And it's just a really neat thing to see how our program has grown under his guidance.
Was there a, and you'll have to educate me on this, was there a conversation when you are explaining, well, this is how, in terms of a volleyball program in our organization, this is the things we have put in place and what we do here? Or does he just come and watch and tell me about those types of kind of detailed conversations with him?
That's a really good question. I think he's challenged our entire department's head coaches to understand that the importance is the body of work as an entire department, and we're all in this together. The success of our football program and our basketball program and our hockey program are going to make our volleyball program successful. So I've never been one to compare ourselves. Volleyball doesn't have a comparative sport when it comes to a male sport. But I've never really been one to say, we need this, we don't have this. Tell us what we have. What are the means with which we can operate? And we'll do our very best to stretch that. So I think that's an important part of it. Details matter to Dan, and details matter to our department. We need to continue to look at what that means on a daily basis, and details matter on the volleyball court. We have incredible students, and when you're a very good student in the classroom, those details carry over to the volleyball court. When you're focused in the weight room and you're focused on the things off the court, that tells me what kind of character you have and where you are. So those details matter that bleed in and you can bring out in an athlete on the court when it comes to, now we're talking volleyball terms here, off blocker defense, or the details that matter as the rally goes back and forth over the net. The team that's paying more attention to the details is going to be the success at the end of a rally. Will find that they're in the position that they want to be in, and they're going to earn the point.
Which is excellent. One last question along that line. When you're somewhere for almost 20 years as a head coach, right? And you are a part of and almost the institution, just like Kathy was, right?
Correct.
And which I assume you are there, Western Michigan,
right?
For so long. When you see coaches come and go, and you've probably seen a lot come and go, how does that feel like inside? I know as a team, being a football player myself, just seeing seniors graduate or players leave or transfer, and of course this was 20 years ago. Before transferring was a huge thing, but just you felt a little tug at the heart. So tell me about how that works for somebody who's been there so long and you've seen a number of coaches come and go, administrators come and go.
And that's a really good question. It's twofold.
Okay.
First of all, you go, how am I now the elder, right? I'm the veteran. The people that hired me have since graduated, or I'm sorry, retired. I want to say graduated, and as if they're a student athlete.
Well, that's too right. They graduated.
They have graduated.
To the next point in life, right?
Our athletic director, our senior associate athletic director, my sports supervisor, our the athletic training staff that was involved in the administration side of things, the compliance side of things. They've all retired, and they've had amazing careers, and they made Western Michigan where who it is today. But at the end of the day, now I know that I'm responsible for carrying that torch and showing, whether it be young coaches, and we've got really good coaches within our department. Some have been here longer than I have, but we all kind of talk amongst ourselves and say, now it's us. They look up to us. We have to show them the way, not compare ourselves to other programs, show them how to work within their budgets. Team building is really important. Culture building is really important. So all the things that as young coaches we might get hung up on. When you come to a convention, you compare yourself to other programs. You have all these great ideas, but you have to harness those ideas and work within the means and in the culture that you've established within your own program. New ideas are great, but new ideas in a different program, whether it be Power 5, Power 4, Big 10, SEC, those you may be able to do a little bit more, but how can I work within the same concept, the same idea within our budget or within Kalamazoo community, and that's been fun to kind of recreate some of those concepts. But it's rewarding. At the end of the day, to answer your question, it's rewarding to know that the legacy that was left ahead of us, we have the ability to leave the same legacy and leave it better than we found it. At the end of the day, that's what we tell our teams, right? We want you to come in as freshmen and learn and grow and be sponges and leave this program better than you found it.
Right, which is excellent. Let's talk about this prop here that we put in the front of the camera, right? 2023 NCAA Division I Midwest Region Coach of the Year. We know for sure you were the Mid-American Conference Coach of the Year. You talk about winning 31 games, which is not an easy feat.
No.
And you're over 400 games, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you're over 400 games, and those are milestones. And from the outside looking in, they can say, she's a great coach, right? But there's so much more that goes into winning Coach of the Year, goes into winning 31 games, goes into winning over 400 games, goes into being the head coach for 19 years, being in the industry for almost 30 years as a coach. Talk to us a little bit about the transition from last year, which, from what I understand, wasn't the best year, to this year, where the outcome of the players and the process, some of the outcomes look excellent from the outside looking in.
Right. Then that's a fair statement, a fair assessment. And first of all the props go to our student athletes. All the credit goes to our coaching staff and our support staff that has helped us put this into play.
Right.
One thing that Dan has really stressed in our department is the holistic development of student athletes. And it's more than volleyball. It's more than their sport. It's more than the playing time. Are we empowering them to be the very best they can be? And there's a lot of things that he's put into play within our department. But most importantly, how are the student athletes doing? How's their mental health? Are they in a position to push themselves? And in order to do that, we have to build relationships. When we build relationships, we can push them. So speaking of relationships, last year, a little over a year ago now, we didn't make our conference tournament in 2022. So in the fall of 2022, we were in a Panda Express parking lot in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and we just got beat for the second time in the 2 nights in 5 sets. And had we won one of those, we would have been in the conference tournament.
Wow.
And the Mid-America Conference takes 6 teams. We didn't make that. We had one more match to play. Our captains approached me. They were emotional. And we said, what's going to change next year? Who are we bringing in as freshmen or in the transfer portal? And I looked at them and said, nobody. We didn't graduate anybody. And we're not bringing any transfers in. You all have it within yourselves. And you all can bring it out of your teammates and each other. And I'm not sure how much they believed in that statement, but we tapped into that quite often throughout the course of the year. Our first team meeting in January, post fall season, in the beginning of our spring or non-traditional or non-championship segment, I had a saying, and that was be the change. So if we were going to strive to hit our goals that they established, we needed to change individually and collectively. And that included our staff. What were we going to do different? Because if you do the same thing, that's the definition of insanity, right? The same thing over and over and expect different results. We needed to change something we were doing. So we approached it as each of them got an index card and they wrote down what they wanted to accomplish themselves and as a team. And that's outcome driven.
Yep.
But then the flip side of that, they turned it over and said, what's the process you're going to go through in order to get to your desired outcome? And those are the things we're going to hold you to. So we met every month, which is checkpoints. How are you doing? Where are we at with everything? Okay. And I'm not the mean coach that says, this is what you want to do. You're not accomplishing it. You're not focused on the process. This is what you want to do. So let's talk about what your goals are and how your daily process to get you there. So we incorporated a few things. First and foremost was our work ethic and our attention to detail. Our strength coach got on board and put them through some things that they hadn't been through, but they were ready for. Okay. And then we scheduled everything to be away matches in the spring because we were fine at home, but on the road, little distractions here and there would possibly get to us.
Right.
Then we had an opportunity to go to Europe, and our fan base and our fundraising efforts were spot on with being able to earn that opportunity. We paid for an opportunity to go to Turkey and Italy, and we played 6 matches over there, 3 in each country. And that was the beginning of seeing the outcome through the process that they were wanting to accomplish. We didn't scout teams. There were no stats. We didn't have fans. We didn't have parents. We didn't have anyone around us. We were doing it for ourselves. And we were intrinsically motivated to do it for ourselves.
Yep.
We didn't have the external around us. Took us into the summer, into the fall, and we started winning more and more and more. And in Europe, we won all our matches against some very good teams. In preseason, we did the same thing. We were 10-2 going into our conference. We were 18-0 in our conference. We had 21 match win streak, and we were dialed into the process. We never talked about the previous night. We never talked about the next night. We talked about that moment that we were in and being dialed into the process to get us to the outcome. Yeah. And we kept having to raise the floor. So the ceiling would raise and raise in the floor. So that was the expectation, and a lot of other things went into it. But the holistic development of our student athletes, that is what has evolved over not only the course of the season, but the course of my career, knowing that I couldn't keep coaching the same way I was coached. Mm-hmm. I had to grow through the process. If we were asking our student athletes to grow, we had to grow as a staff.
And I have a couple questions. I got a few questions. I was marking
Stop there. Right.
First question is on the evaluation points. Did you as a staff / team players evaluate the end of the season in terms of, we don't stop evaluating on what we've done or what we couldn't do, but let's also evaluate the wins and how we...
Yes, that's really important to note. We needed to celebrate the successes that we had. 100%. Just because we didn't get to the conference tournament didn't mean we were unsuccessful. We have to celebrate the milestones, the growth in our program. Mm-hmm. Every month we have what we call a reflect and relaunch. Okay. And we meet with the staff and we ask our young women to fill this out. What are their learns? What are their wins, their losses, their learns? What do they want to continue to do, start doing, stop doing, and what do they uniquely bring to the program themselves? Every month we go through that. So we're celebrating their growth, and the things that they were bringing up about themselves was spot on. And then we would expand on that. We would watch video together. And then I would actually give them a stack of these and I'd print them out. And for 12 months, they had this information to look back on their growth. So some of the things they may have wrote down on that index card in January, now we started to see come to fruition, whether it was player of the week or all tournament members or first team all conference, second team all conference, academic awards, MAC championship, all that stuff started to play out. But they knew it was because of the attention to detail they paid individually. So collectively, our systems would be efficient.
Which I think is excellent.
Yes.
Going back to that parking lot, Panda Express, you said?
Panda Express.
And, you're thinking about getting an orange chicken.
Yes.
One of the players comes and asks, who are we going to bring in to make us better?
Yep. We had 3 captains in the parking lot.
Do you know, this is captains, and as a head coach who is probably very self-aware and been a head coach for a while into leadership, to hear that question is almost disappointing, because it's like, wait a minute. Well, opportunity and disappointing, right?
Correct.
Exactly.
I think that's eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Eye-opening is probably...
When we've asked them for full transparency,
mm-hmm.
and when you're asking someone to be transparent with you, you've got to show that transparency. Mm-hmm. So it was an emotional opportunity that we took full advantage of, because I just left a locker room of tears.
Yeah.
And our staff was emotional because we knew this team had not played up to their potential.
Yeah.
So
heartbreaking, not disappointing. It's almost heartbreaking.
Yes, heartbreaking
for a captain to say, who are we going to bring in?
Because translation to a coach,
mm-hmm.
I don't believe that I myself or our teammates can get us where we want to go.
Yeah, that's, oh my God.
Okay,
goosebumps. That's like,
so it makes you ponder, and now I know the direction that we need to go.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't necessarily believe in yourself first and foremost, or have the confidence in yourself, or have the skill set in yourself, and that's my responsibility. No one can share confidence. No one can give you confidence. But what I heard in that moment was, I haven't done my job.
Yeah.
Our staff hasn't done their job to help you with your skill set in the moment that we needed to perform, to be efficient within our system, so you don't have the belief in yourself because you haven't seen yourself do it yet.
Like the introspection level probably went up to 15.
100%. So we had a very long conversation as a staff, a moment, closed door, a lot of passion, and I was the first one to throw myself under the bus. I haven't done my job in order to get us to where we need to go. And now I need to share with you what you're going to see from me.
Right.
So staff members, let's have full disclosure as well. And we all are evolving and growing, and we'll be the first to share this with the student athletes. So they're not alone in their growth process. And that was a monumental moment. They knew we were on board with them. Yeah. They knew we weren't pointing fingers. I was the one that was taking full responsibility for not getting into the conference tournament. All the credit when we win goes to the student athletes. Yeah. All the responsibility when we lose goes to me, whether we're not prepared. But I really do encourage our staff, if you don't like where we are within a skill set in the system we're trying to work through, that's on us to teach in that moment. Yeah. Because they don't know what we haven't taught them. So we can't get upset with it.
Right.
So that was eye-opening. Now, take me back 19 years. No way did I even think that way. Yeah. So that's how we've evolved and we've grown.
Exactly. Which is important. I thought that's a watershed moment,
yes.
I think, in terms of,
yes.
You look at inflection points in life and career for a head coach, in my outside looking in opinion, that's an inflection point. Right?
Correct.
It forced you to be introspective as a coach. That one question is a instantaneous, immediate evaluation of everything we've done as coaches and everything you've done as players and everything, right? So it's immediately, so what are we going to do to improve? And we need to improve. I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it was excellent. You think about the question they asked about bringing in somebody, which leads me to think about what's going on now in college athletics, transfer, right? NIL, all the things that are the current headlines. And I wonder about your thoughts on those things, NIL, collectives, transfer portal, just all the things now that from when I was playing weren't there, right?
When
you
started
coaching,
right?
When you things weren't there, but they're there now and they're part of the game, and we have to evolve, and we can't be disgruntled about where the game's going, because that's where it's going.
That's where it is.
Tell me about some thoughts on that.
It used to be where we would recruit student athletes, and that was our team. You didn't have a whole lot of transfers. Transfer portal entered the picture. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity we would never deny a student athlete. Once they get into the portal, they lose the opportunity at your current school, but we have an opportunity now to bring in different athletes, whether it be incoming high school students during the regular recruiting process or transfer in the portal. We've done our best to manage that, but nothing changes from the perspective of we're still doing our due diligence to find out there's a reason they're in the portal. Now, it might have been they made a poor decision for themselves, family environment, they want to get closer to home, playing time's typically an issue. All of the above we have to evaluate. And then we do our due diligence in contacting those coaches and saying, what kind of young woman are we bringing in? Is this going to fit into our system, et cetera, et cetera. We do not have a collective or a big portion of NIL money that our student athletes that we can bring and say, here's where we're at, because we're not able to do that. The rules tell us that they can ask our student athletes where they're making their NIL money.
Right.
And the collectives are not something that myself or my staff or institution can even use as a tool. That is going to be there from a booster opportunity. So we haven't had that presence in our program.
Okay.
We have had the biggest seller for our program has been our culture and the genuine family feel that we have within our culture, and our staff feels with our student athletes, and our student athlete feels with our staff. So when you ask a student athlete in the portal, what are they looking for? Typically, it's their top 3 answers are, I want to be closer to home, I want to win, and I want to be a part of a culture that feels like family. Those are the things that we ride. Those are the things that we capitalize on because we have all of those things. We're a top 30 program. We've got an incredible track record. We know how to win. Our staff is one of the best in our conference, in our region. And we have a great culture within our program. And I know that because I know what it feels like not to have that. Okay. And there's a big difference. We talk about our program being player-led. And our player-led program will bring in a recruit. And when we bring them in, they get to meet with them. And they will assess how that student athlete would fit into our culture because they're the ones driving that culture. So the transfer portal is not going anywhere. NIL money, collective money is here to stay. From what I understand, it may be evolving over the next year from the memo that we received from the NCAA, president. But we're taking full advantage of the opportunities that we have today at Western Michigan and Kalamazoo, Michigan, to really push our values within our program. And that remains. So we've had success in the transfer portal. We're continuing to recruit the transfer portal, but we are by no means neglecting how they would fit into our current culture and our current team with student athletes that are very talented, and we're being very picky.
Yeah. Recruiting the transfer portal, is it because you don't have the hands-on, I
it's
guess,
unique.
Yeah. So tell me about that aspect, because, from what I understand in volleyball, a lot of people know where they're going by junior year in high school kind of situation.
Correct.
So,
some recruiting rules have changed over the years, and right now we're not able to talk to or interact with, bring anyone the conversation up until they finish their sophomore year, June 15th, going into their junior year. So juniors and seniors, let's just for simplicity's sake. Hands-on, we have an opportunity to work them through camp, evaluate them through camp and such, and go out to their high schools and their travel ball or club volleyball experiences. So we're able to see some of that.
So that's recruiting, right?
That is our recruiting.
Yeah.
When someone gets in the portal, depending on their years, we are now getting into the last year of our COVID opportunity. So someone that came in during COVID has an extra year that they can go somewhere else. If they graduate within 4 years, they have an extra COVID year. We're actually keeping 5 of our COVID kids this next fall. Okay. And then we have 2 actual seniors. So we'll have 7 that we graduate. So that makes it the future it appears to be, wow, you're going to be really young.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we can start to plug in some of the transfer portal young women if they're not only a 1-year transfer with the COVID year. Okay. We also really enjoy that perspective, having had an experience at a 4-year institution, going through the recruiting process in high school with another institution, committing to them, getting playing experience under that. Now they're very uniquely qualified to say, this is what I didn't like. This is why I'm leaving. and this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That becomes an 18, 19, 20-year-old student athlete in the transfer portal versus a 17, 18-year-old that has never done this before.
Yeah,
so we're really working through taking full advantage of the positive side of the portal versus the negative. You'll never hear us talk about the negative side because I don't believe there is one. The one caveat is they're in the portal for a reason, but it's up to you to figure that out. They don't necessarily disclose why they're in the portal. Right, exactly. You have to pull it out of them.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yep.
You're thinking about the changes. You mentioned President Charlie Baker's memo, I guess it was,
yes,
when he put out there.
Yes.
And you talk about conferences and subdivisions, and you talk about bringing NIL in-house, and you talk about the different things and dollar amounts of values and things like that. I wonder about your thoughts after reading something like that and applying it, I guess, to the industry in terms of volleyball.
Well, I think that you're going to read that memo from the perspective that you're reading the memo.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the dollar amounts that don't necessarily pertain to a mid-major like ourselves, I'm not really going to pay a lot of attention to. It's important to know because it's important to know what other institutions that we'll be recruiting against. Because if our goal, like I mentioned earlier, our athletic directors say we want to be in the top of the group of 5.
Yeah.
If we're competing against the Power 4, 5 conferences, we need to know what they're able to give, but we still set our sights on what we have and what we can recruit and how we can maximize their experience during the recruiting process. Okay. So what I took out of that memo is not dollar amount. Okay. What I took out of that memo is in the future, not currently, but in the future, institutions may be able to be more involved within the collectives or more involved within the NIL process in-house.
Right.
So we might be able to hire somebody in-house within our department that's going to be very intentional with our current student athletes and our future student athletes. That's what I got out of that.
Yeah.
Okay. How it all plays and brings everything together, I'm not concerned about the dollar amount that we may not have, nor ever have. But what can we really control is how it pertains to our campus and our institution, and then sell that. So that's where our sights are set right now, within our donor base and within our current student athletes and our future student athletes.
Control the controllables.
Correct.
I wonder, being such an institution there at Western Michigan, are you involved in like providing insight in that type of conversation with the athletic director, or are you just, hey, I'm a volleyball coach, or how tell me you're...
Dan brings it up, our athletic director brings it up in every head coaches meeting,
okay, so
and he asked our opinion. And it's very interesting you bring that up because our last conversation, he asked how we felt about that as a volleyball program. And I might have had a different answer, and I did have a different answer a year ago. We're not in the conference tournament. We're not even in the hunt to the season that we just had. And the level of athlete now that is interested in our program and the emails that I'm getting. So now I perk up and go, what is all this NIL stuff?
Yeah.
What are we able to do? What are we not able to do? What are we able to communicate? And the collectives, of course. So now the antennas have gone up a bit, and that becomes an even more important piece to the recruiting process and what the student athletes may be expecting or are being offered other places. I have to know that.
Yeah, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder your thoughts on the state of the game.
Okay.
Just period. College.
The state of
volleyball.
college volleyball.
Yeah.
It's fun because there's a session that I really want to go to tomorrow that actually talks about the future of volleyball. And it's evolved so much in the time that I played in high school and my travel ball experience. And we used to call it affectionately, and we could call this in our gym right now. We have a game called old school volleyball, and you must serve to earn a point. And our student athletes look at us like, why would we ever do this? Well, this is what we used to do. We didn't have let serve, where it means if the ball hits the net, it was an error. And as the other side teams side out, you had to serve to earn points.
Yeah.
There was no libero, however you want to say that. You could only serve on the right side hash mark of the end line. And now you can serve the whole end line. The sub rules have changed quite a bit. The level of athleticism has evolved. The level of players and what they're capable of doing has evolved. And some of the inside of the game where the time between sets, switching of sides changed during COVID, the length of our timeouts, the media involvement, the tremendous milestones that we've reached on so many campuses this year, starting in Nebraska and Lincoln with 92,000 people watching their game. What we have done for young women and the game is historic.
Yeah.
So that is exciting. I foresee the evolution of the game to continue to grow to, in a good way, for TV.
Yeah.
To not compromise the integrity of our sport, but to change within the sport to make it more entertaining and more fun to play. It's not a give and take. It's a let's work through this together and see how we can better our game for the young women that play.
Excellent. I'll ask this last question and then we'll wrap. It's about leadership and culture.
Okay.
The team that asks you in the parking lot, who are we going to bring in, is the exact same team, right?
Yes.
That won
Yes.
31 games.
Yep.
Which I think is excellent, right? So it shows growth and evolution. When you think about leadership and culture, you always want to have your core values. You have your purpose for existing and the goals to execute your purpose with the guidance of your core values. I wonder, as a coach, with a transformational moment like that, did anything change in terms of your thoughts on what we needed as foundations for our program? And or if it didn't change, what are the foundations that you feel make a good culture for you there at Western Michigan?
Such a loaded question. That's such a great question. Okay, to answer that, their perspective and their mindset and their growth has changed. Okay, so the core of our student athletes that were really with us for 2 full years heard the same messages, but they were now hearing it differently. Okay. They created the mission. They created the vision. We have a set of values within our program, and they created the goals. The goals now became daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals. At the end of our season, we put them all on the board, a dry erase board, and we went through and we did we accomplish this? And we have a check mark. Did we accomplish this? Check mark. All throughout that, we lived daily. We knew what our mission was. We knew what our vision was. We knew what our values were. We knew what our goals were, and we lived them out. And that is the difference. When we live that way, our process becomes so simple, so consistent, and so clear that we were able to have the outcome 31 times, where the previous year we didn't.
Right.
That is as simple as that. There was no magic. There was no genie in a bottle. There was no recruit coming off the portal. There was no freshman to save us.
Yeah.
It was all within their ability and their choice to be great.
Which is excellent. Yeah. And those values didn't change.
The values were consistent.
The values are consistent.
They were
for
consistent.
19 years, I guess.
Correct. Because those values stay with me.
Stay with you. Is that
they want to live courageously, learn and be curious. They want to laugh and have fun and joy. They want to learn to be transparent. And then leadership is communication. Those are our values.
Yep. Which is excellent. And the other things the students set each year. The other things, but the values stay.
The values stay.
I think the students help set goals, what we want to accomplish. That's excellent. I think it's.
And now our goal for the next season is, because we're bringing in some new athletes, so 5 new players, we have to walk alongside them and let them know that we walked this out, but this is how we did it. It doesn't happen with the snap of a finger or the bounce of a ball or the practice. It is intentional. We have to be intentional with what we do.
Which is excellent. Well, Colleen, I really appreciate you joining us here on D1 Ticker and Coaches.wire.
Thank you.
Yes,
that was fun.
It was fun. That was Colleen Munson. She is the head volleyball coach at Western Michigan. And of course, I am Ty Brown with D1 Ticker and Coaches.wire. We're here at the 2023 AVCA National Convention. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.